getting close. Got a question.
It's a beautiful day on the Grand Strand. Welcome to Conversations with the Hoff. I'm Steve Hoffman, your host, and with me in the studio today is the executive producer of Liberty Crack Media, Trip Detmering.
Hello, everybody.
We also have a special call-in guest today, Mr. John Dennis. Mr. Dennis is the chairman of the Republican Liberty Caucus. If you're a listener to my previous podcast, you're probably wondering how I can use the words Republican and Liberty in the same sentence. But I think after this podcast, you'll learn that there really are Republicans who are committed to the principles of limited government, individual, and economic freedom. John Dennis serves as the chairman of the Republican Liberty Caucus, a national organization dedicated to advancing individual rights, limited government, and free market within the Republican Party. This is his second term as the RLC chairman, and he's been on the board of the RLC since 2015. He was born in Jersey City, New Jersey, earned his bachelor's degree from Fordham University, and currently resides in San Francisco with his wife, Heather, and one daughter. He's a self-described Ron Paul Republican. He's known for his libertarian-leaning positions, including support for legalized marijuana, opposing the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, supporting gay marriage, advocating for dramatically reducing federal spending, calling for phasing out the income tax, repealing the Patriot Act, and auditing the Federal Reserve. Sounds kind of libertarian to me.
Yeah.
Definitely. These positions place him firmly within the Liberty Movement wing of the GOP, aligning with the Republican Liberty Caucus's mission. He ran for Congress in 2010 against Nancy Pelosi. You'll know what it's all about when we pass the bill, right? And gained national attention for a viral online ad featuring Nancy Pelosi look-alike as the Wicked Witch of the West, which he defeats using a bucket labeled Freedom. He's been active in California GOP politics, serving as the chairman of the San Francisco GOP from 2019 to 2025, and he's currently serving on the board for his second term on the board of the California Republican Party. So welcome to the show, John.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I thought we'd start off today, if maybe you could tell us a little bit about the mission of the Republican Liberty Caucus and how it was founded.
Well, the mission of the Republican Liberty Caucus is to advance the ideas that upon which the country was founded, specifically within the Republican Party, but also within the electorate in general. And sort of the general idea that the Republican Party used to be the party of liberty. We used to be the party that Robert Taft and Howard Buffett and we held positions that were in line with the founding principles of the country. But now I don't know what we represent. We've certainly switched in the Trump years to something other than that, and so we certainly have an important mission, and one that's really relevant to where we stand today.
That's probably why you're called the conscience of the Republican Party, because you go back to the old Republican Party platforms and principles.
Sure. Well, we try. I mean, I think a number of organizations consider themselves the conscience of the Republican Party. I think the Republican Assembly. There's some other groups that might consider themselves to be that. But if we're talking about the real founding principles, what the founders wanted for the country, I'd say that in that regard, there is no question that the Republican Liberty Caucus is in fact the conscience of the party.
Yeah, from my research, originally the principles of the Republican Party were limited government, free enterprise, personal liberty and responsibility. It kind of makes you wonder what they're all about today.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's because because the country's drifted from those principles, the party sort of reacted to the reality of the situation. But I think in some ways reacted, badly, and gone in a kind of a different direction. If you listen to Donald Trump interviews going back just to the '80s when he was just a playboy billionaire running around New York, he was very political. It's in his blood. He's really gifted with his own sense of politics, but his thrust has always been that and it really offended him personally, that the country's being taken advantage of by other countries, by the leaders of other countries. He's super competitive. He doesn't want to see his country being taken advantage of, and it's a worthy discussion. But I think what he sort of ignored and where he's missed it is where the Tea Party was just before he got involved in politics. So the Tea Party was that, well, okay, we may have some problems with our international trade and international relations on the one hand, but the real problem that we suffered from, what put us in those bad positions on those trade deals, was the internal threat that's presented by Washington that is expanded well beyond its constitutional constraints, and which is, I think gently I can say, has suffered from overreach. So, so as the Trump era begins to wind down here in the next year or so, hopefully the Republican Party can sort of filter back to its roots and sort of understand that the real threat to the country is Washington and the culture that supports it.
Yeah, we'll get into that a little bit more later on, but maybe you could also tell us a little bit about the founding of the RLC. When was it founded?
The RLC was founded, and I'm glad that we looked this up before, as I see it, it was founded in 1991. Did I get that date right?
Yes. The actual official founding was July 1991.
Ripon, Wisconsin.
Ripon, Wisconsin. And we had...
No, that's the Republican Party.
We had some interesting folks who were involved with it, Roger McBride and some other folks. And the first convention was held in July of 1991. And I think even back then they saw the direction where we were going. I mean, the Reagan presidency offered some promise at its inception. Reagan gave some great interviews, particularly in Reason magazine in 1975, where he said that the heart of conservatism is libertarianism. And so there was a lot of hope, but Reagan's, unfortunately, he did some good things, but he really started us on the path to where we stand today. And so there was a reaction to that, and especially, in the George H.W. Bush presidency, the party was drifting into something, I don't even know what to describe what the H.W. presidency was about, other than sort of establishment Republican,
Reagan,
goals, whatever they were interested in, So anyway, so I think the RLC was a reaction to that.
Yeah, Reagan definitely had Republicans thinking about limited government and individual freedom and stuff like that. But also the 1988 Libertarian Party, where they had Ron Paul was the presidential candidate. That got a lot of support from Republicans. And it actually had a bunch of Republicans that they called themselves the Liberty Caucus. And they were trying to influence what was going inside the Republican Party at the same time. But they never really officially formed or had officers like the RLC did back in July of 1991.
Yeah, that's right. And I think Ron was always an admired Republican. It's interesting because I wasn't active in politics at all. I was a student body president at Fordham, but I really was focused on my business career during those years. But the one thing that I did before I got involved in Ron Paul's campaign in 2007 was I was living in Chicago, and I heard that kind of liked Ron Paul. I'd heard some things about him. And so I went to a Libertarian Party office and stuffed envelopes for him to send out mailers. That was the thing you had to do in those days. And so that was really the only active political thing I'd done from when I graduated college until I got involved in his campaign in 2007. So he's always been sort of a guiding light, North Star, if you will, of what Republican politics and national politics ought to be about.
Right. Yeah, and another thing that I read about the mission of the RLC is to support candidates who align with the RLC principles. So you have a pretty vigorous candidate endorsement process. Could you kind of go over that a little bit as far as how the national party endorses the candidates for the federal government and how the states endorse candidates for the state governments?
Sure. So we have 10 chapters. We've grown quite a bit with our chapters. I think there've been periods when the Republican Liberty Caucus was formidable, particularly during and just with the end of Ron Paul's 2008 run. I think that was sort of the high point of the RLC. So we've been building back chapters. We have 10 now. And on the state level, they have their own vetting process, which is guided by a national, but they effectively do the same thing. We have a questionnaire. We ask candidates to fill out. It's involved, and we really appreciate when candidates do it, because if anybody who's ever run for office knows, you get a lot of these kinds of questionnaires from groups, so we appreciate the time that they take to fill those out, and then they have to sign our Liberty Compact, and which basically is a recitation of the basic principles of the Republican Liberty Caucus. And so they fill out the questionnaire, and then they sign the compact, and then we interview the candidates whose surveys look good, and then it goes to a vote. Either if you're running for state office, to the board of the state party, and if it's a national office, Congress, Senate, or president, we take a vote on the national board.
Yeah, I guess at this point I need to confess that I, the Hoff, was a longtime member of the Republican Liberty Caucus. Matter of fact, at one point I was the vice chair of the National Caucus and a longtime representative from South Carolina. And the candidate endorsement process was quite extensive. The candidate had to meet the basically confirm that they met the principles of the Republican Liberty Caucus. The survey covered constitutional principles about limited government, free enterprise, and personal liberty. What I really liked, and I hope you're still using it, the Liberty Compact. Are you still using that for your
yeah,
vetting?
As I mentioned earlier, we still ask the candidates to sign the Liberty Compact, and that's
sort critical.
It's an essential. It's a critical portion.
Yeah, because it says in the Liberty Compact that the candidate will work to restore liberty, not restrict it; to shrink government, not expand it; to reduce taxes, not raise them; to abolish programs, not create them; to promote the freedom and independence of citizens, not the interference of government in their lives; and observe the limited, enumerated powers of the Constitution, not ignore them. My God, that's fabulous. I wish that every person that went for public office or went to Mordor on the Potomac actually had to sign a pledge like that. If everybody had to sign a pledge like that, we wouldn't have the problems we have today. The United States would be a very prosperous nation and a very peaceful nation. What do you think? I think it's great.
Oh, sure. Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I mean, absolutely. We, if we would not have nearly $40 trillion in federal debt if people signed that compact and kept their word to it. And so, the problems that we have today is because people don't understand what it's really about there, Steve, is that it's an understanding about what the appropriate role of government is in our lives. Founders were really clear about it. It just doesn't take a lot to understand where they were going. They wanted to constrain the government. The Constitution is an exercise in restraint and constraint, and that the idea of the Enlightenment, the great idea that the individual is the sovereign and we're born in a state of liberty, and that liberty is to be preserved by governments, not extinguished or restrained by them. That's what we're after. That's what the compact is about. And if people understood that, I think we'd be in a very different situation.
Yeah, that's a good point. The Constitution was written to restrain the role of government in our lives, not to increase the role of government. Now, if you're a recent college graduate from any university in the U.S., you probably disagree with that because you believe that it's government responsibility to take care of me from cradle to grave, and government is there to fix all the problems we have in the universe. I often, if you listen to my previous episodes, you talked about the infiltration of the progressive agenda in all of our American institutions, and how right now we're kind of traveling on that road to serfdom. And it's organizations like the Republican Liberty Caucus that we need to reverse direction and get us back on the road to individual and economic freedom. So yeah, you got quite a challenge in front of you. How many? So to meet that challenge, how is the membership doing? Are you growing the number of state chapters? Are you growing the number of state coordinators?
Yeah, so that's going really well. I mean, we over the last year have, we actually sort of dwindled down. We had strong states like Florida and Texas. But a lot of this depends a bit on who the national candidates are and who the leaders are of the Republican Party. And Donald Trump, you can say what you want, but he's a great character, charismatic, and he just sucked the oxygen out of the room and got people's attention focused on the agenda that was that he saw was important, and for which a lot of people have sympathy. But now people are starting to see the limitations of that, and we have other leaders who've stood up and one kind of are sort of questioning about where we're going. And so in the last year, we have doubled the size of the membership. We've doubled the size of the number of state chapters that we have. You can see coordinators working in about another 15 or 20 states. They're working on growing membership so that they can start chapters. So things are moving in a great direction, and it gives me a little bit of hope about where we can go as a country. I guess
within this year, you've added Alabama and Virginia to the list of fully certified state chapters.
Alabama, Virginia,
Alabama,
Kentucky.
Virginia. What's the other
Alabama,
one?
Virginia, Kentucky.
Oh, Kentucky. Okay.
Yeah, and we have. I'm just pulling it up right now. The chapters that we have, but we have. If you go to our website, you can see where we have. State coordinators working in. In a number of states. I want to say it's about 15 or so. We're on the verge of a new chapter in Georgia. We have. We're on the verge of a chapter in Indiana, Tennessee. But we got to get people off their beach chairs in Myrtle Beach and
South Carolina.
Get them going with get South Carolina back in the loop here.
When I was with the RLC,
the state that flew the flag, "Don't tread on me," needs a Republican Liberty Caucus chapter. Yeah,
the South Carolina chapter used to be really big back, 10 years ago, but then things kind of have an ebb and flow to them, and the South Carolina chapter is kind of been pretty laid back here recently.
Well, the problem with South Carolina, too, is that it doesn't have a GOP.
Oh, we have a very dysfunctional GOP.
No, you have a GOB.
Oh, GOB, what's that?
Good old boys.
Yeah.
These are all Dixiecrats. These are all old Dixiecrats. These are not Republicans.
Yeah, South Carolina politics is very interesting.
I will say this, that every, trust me, listen, California is an interesting place. As you mentioned, I'm on the board of the California Republican Party. I served as the chairman of the San Francisco Republican Party for 6 years. And, we are actually the largest Republican Party in the country based on our registration. But, every state has dysfunction. But you also have people who are rooted in the history of the country in every state, and those are the people we're looking to carry the torch.
You wouldn't get that feeling in listening to the national news. You say, yeah, all 3 Republicans in California are now doing this, because basically the Democrats kind of control the whole state, don't they?
Episode 1 of Microphone Monkeys drops this Thursday, January 15th. If you are into sadism, or just pain in general, tune in on your favorite podcast platform like Spotify or Apple Podcast and more.
Well, they do. But California is interesting in the sense they have a supermajority in Sacramento. They control both houses and, of course, the executive branch. But if you look at California on the map, a color-coded map of where the Democrat voters are and whether we have the blue and the red, you see, you go about 10, maybe 15 miles in most parts of the state, and it's a very red state. The population centers are largely Democrat, not exclusively. We still have Orange County and a strong foothold in San Diego. But, Republican registration has actually, grown. And I think we need to grow about another 5 points and have the Democrats another 5 points. And then I think we'll see competitive races on the state level, and we'll see us breaking the
sounds like you're going to have
the supermajority.
Yeah. Sounds like you're going to have a pretty competitive race for California governor this year. The Republicans are going to have definitely have a voice.
Well, we'll see about that. I mean, I like Steve. I've known Steve a long time, and helped him. My position in the California GOP, what's called the chair of chairs, and we work with every county chair, to help them with the resources and the things they need to run their counties effectively. And so I worked with Steve, and I talk to him pretty regularly now. But the truth is, we have a 19-point deficit. And if anybody's going to be able to overcome that, it'd be somebody like Steve. But he'll bring up great issues. I'm not sure about the prospects of victory, though.
You think his campaign will grow the number of Republicans in the state?
Possibly. I mean, I find guys who help move the needle in terms of registration take strong positions of principle. I mean, I noticed. Look, there are 3,144 counties in America. Guess which county has the lowest percentage of Republican registration?
Los Angeles County.
No, you're in the right neighborhood. Keep going.
What's San Francisco County? Is there
San Francisco County. So during my tenure as chairman, the last Republican mayor left office in San Francisco in January of 1964, and every year since then we'd dropped registration. And I said, well, let's see if we can't change that a little bit.
That's amazing.
We didn't focus on trying to be, friends with the other side or trying to moderate our positions to appeal to the fence sitters. We said, no, we're going to hold our position. This is what we believe in. And we had other strategies, but we held that position. And for the first time, not only did we stop the slide in Republican registration, but we actually grew. We grew at 25%. And so I find that if someone takes a really strong principle position, they're the types of people who move the needle on registration. Steve's not exactly like that. He's more of a we can do better kind of guy, more of a sort of practical guy. He's principled, don't get me wrong, but he doesn't lead with that in his politics. I don't think he'll move the needle much in terms of Republican registration, but I think he'll get a lot of Republican votes. He'll pick off some Democrats, and he'll get a lot of NPPs, and that's his best chance to win. And I think he's suited for that more than moving the needle on Republican registration.
Why don't the Republicans focus on the quality of life, the reality of the situation that are cities that are controlled by Democrats? I mean, San Francisco, I used to go there all the time when I traveled for a living. It was a beautiful city. Nowadays, when I'm watching TV and hearing the people on the talking heads, they say, well, you go there, but you better wear rubber boots when you walk down the street. You know.
Well, you know, it's a problem. I mean, I'm sitting right here in the city in the middle of San Francisco now, yeah, sure. That's what we focus on, their quality of life issues. It's not just, you know, the danger and the filth of the city, but it's also high gas prices that are, you know, California prices are about, you know, 50, 60, 70% higher than the national average.
So you got extremely high gas prices, and California is doing everything humanly possible to get rid of the petroleum plants, the processing plants, the refineries.
Oh, you know, terrible thing. I mean, yeah, I think you would think that what you were talking about, what the role of government is. You would think that the Democrats believe that the role of government is to immiserate Californians.
Yeah, the number of companies that are leaving San Francisco. You hear about that every day. National chains closing their stores in San Francisco. I mean, the Democrat administration is ruining the city, but yet they still have the highest number of Democrat registered voters. I'm sorry, that does not make sense.
Well, we picked that off. Growing 25% is, I think, impressive just because think about the energy it takes and the frustration it takes to actually say, I'm coming out of the closet as a Republican in San Francisco.
Okay, yeah.
It's a tough thing to do, right. And we did that, but it's not, it's San Francisco, and San Francisco's been a feeder city to Sacramento. And so now what happens is, what are we looking at? Well, we're looking at a billionaire tax. And this is something I want to put on the radar for your listeners. You know, it's not just a tax on billionaires' income. Tax on net worth of billionaires, and it's on the ballot in November. It is a thing that they're trying to float across the country. You hear Elizabeth Warren talking about it. You hear about a number of people talking about it. But let me just make this really. I want to make this really clear. We have an amazing ecosystem. It's really what drives the entire California economy. And that is, the tech business centered out of Palo Alto and Sand Hill Road, where the billionaires live. They accumulate capital and they invest it in tech companies, which affect how we live in our futures. And it is the envy of the world. I know I've lived around the world. I've been to a million cities in this country. Every city everywhere would like to have the ecosystem that we have in the Bay Area. If they pass that billionaire tax, it's for the first time since the founding of Silicon Valley that we're actually going to have the threat of losing that ecosystem, because billionaires will move out of the state and they'll start saying, we can put these deals together in Miami. We can put these deals together in Austin. We can put these deals together in some other places that give us tax breaks. And it really threatens life. And it's an ideology that emanates from places like San Francisco that filters into Sacramento, that impacts the quality of life of people all over California.
Yeah, there used to be a good website called How Money Walks. And when states start imposing ridiculous taxes on people, on the producers, they walk. They go to other states. And not only California, but right now Seattle's making the same mistake. They've got their billionaire tax that they're considering, or I think it may have already passed. And you're going to see.
You look.
Well, go ahead.
You look at. I just looked at this recently. I looked at a chart of the states and how much they spend per capita, and take a guess at which states are the two lowest in spending per capita.
Okay, well, what do you mean by that? Spending per capita?
Well, you can say the budget for New York State is
Okay.
a massive amount, right? And then you divide it by the number of
Yeah.
people, and that's the amount that they.
So who's
Here's
the
here's the
highest?
key thing with government. Here's the thing that you have to look with governments. Never look at the revenue. Always look at the spending, especially on the federal level. Spending is what matters. That is the productive that they're taking, resources that they're taking out of the society.
Yeah, you're
and
taking
out of the
capital out of
economy,
the places. that could be used else places. Yeah.
that could be used to advancing humanity, and instead they're putting it into make work jobs that that such the energy. But what I was getting at, the two states with the lowest spending per capita, state government budgets with the lowest spending per capita, are Texas and Florida. Where is everyone moving?
Very dynamic states.
They're
dynamic growing
states,
leaps and bounds.
And that's where people, and they have no income taxes, and that's where wealthy people feel like, okay, this is where I want to set up my business. I'm not going to have an intrusive government that's going to threaten me every time I try and do something interesting and try and grow a company. And they're leaving places like California to go there.
Okay, so basically, the Republican Liberty Caucus right now, you definitely have a culture that's a little bit different than the Republican Party. I think your biggest challenge today is your challenge within the Republican Party. And in closing today, I'd like to talk a little bit about what are those challenges and how are you going to meet those challenges? What can you do to help reform the Republican Party, to put it more in line with your tenets, what you believe in?
Let's start by taking a look at where the Republican Party is right now. It's not monolithically, ideologically behind Donald Trump, and I don't want to mean to come across that I like Donald Trump, and
my research says it's fractured. You got Donald Trump on one end, and you got other Republicans on the other end. It's like they got to come together.
You have a lot of people who either have no ideas of their own, or they're sort of like wishy-washy about them. And so if their re-election is threatened, they're not willing to stand up to Donald Trump, who's the 800-pound gorilla in the room. But as his influence over the party wanes, and he will have influence over the party, for some time to come, but it'll wane, and we have an opportunity, particularly in 2028. To take on a new direction. So the Republican Liberty Caucus is out there. We're aggressively, we're building chapters. We're raising money. We're starting new programs to attract people to the RLC so that we become a force. Our biggest chapter is as I mentioned earlier, is in Florida. We have in January they have what's called lobbying days, and when the RLC rolls into Tallahassee, you can rest assured that legislators meet with them. They hear them out. They come to their events because they do not want to get on the wrong side of the RLC.
You have a high level of influence. That's what we want to do. That's good.
That's what we want to do. And I don't think that it's a mistake that Florida, which has the lowest spending per capita of any state government in the country, is also a really strong RLC state. And the stronger the RLC is, the more effective the government is. So we're focused on the red states, where the RLC can have an impact, and if you do, these are the ideas that are interesting to you, then you should join the RLC.
Yeah, I know Florida's got a very, very active Republican Liberty Caucus. Now, what about alliances? Couldn't you help grow the party by forming alliances with other freedom-loving institutions like the Americans for Prosperity, Young Americans for Liberty? And every state, almost every state, has a legislative freedom caucus. Have you all gotten together and met with the various freedom caucuses and say, hey, we need to get together on certain issues and then form an alliance?
We do. We do it in the states where we're active. We have state coordinators who are now starting to work with some of those caucuses. I just went to a retreat last month with the Young Americans for Liberty. That was a great event, and we're talking about how we can move, work together moving forward. went to the Kentucky Derby with Rand Paul, and he and I have shared some ideas about what we can do. And we have some thoughts about doing high profile events that involve all of the liberty driven political groups in the Republicans.
So is Rand Paul still very supportive of the RLC?
Oh yeah, we have. I mean, if you look at his quote on our website, he says he wouldn't know where he'd be today if it wasn't for the RLC, because it was RLC members that really got behind him and encouraged him to run, and then worked aggressively on his 2010 campaign, which it was an impressive win, because you look back. I mean, he was a little active in politics and he had an organization, but he had never held elective office, and there were substantial people who he had to face down, and he, his first office was becoming a U.S. senator, and it was Republican Liberty Caucus folks who helped him achieve that. So he's always got a special place.
I remember
the RLC.
The last RLC convention I was at was in Orlando, Florida, and the keynote speaker there was Thomas Massie. Just fantastic. He was the Liberty guy in the U.S. Congress, and even your Liberty Index placed him at the top with the highest score in Congress, and also Rand Paul. Rand Paul scored the highest in the Senate, but the problem was the next highest was way, way, way down below Rand Paul. You got a big problem in the Senate as far as Republicans who support the Liberty agenda.
We have some good folks in the House, but Rand stands alone in the Liberty Index. And just so people know, what we do is we don't lobby people on individual bills, and we don't do anything preferential. But we just do the scorecard. We look at people how they voted at the end of the year, and then we just do a score. And it's just that Rand and Thomas happen to come out on top because they share the same idea of what the government ought to do. We have the same political philosophy, and so it's just the way it works out, and that's not going to change. I mean, Rand isn't going to change. In fact, Thomas, wouldn't change so much. He was so committed to his principles that that they had to throw $30 million at him to run him out of office.
Right.
So,
Before I close here, tell us a little bit about the Liberty Index, because I definitely use that document. I spread it through every one of my Facebook pages whenever it comes out to let the people in South Carolina know, here's your glorious Republicans, here's their score, and it's pretty low for most of them.
Yeah, so the Liberty Caucus, the Liberty Index, we do it for, we grade every Republican in the House Index, and then in the Senate Index, we grade every Republican based on how they voted over the last year. It's very difficult to capture every vote, but what we do is we take a cross section of votes based on foreign policy, domestic policy, spending, taxation, a variety of things, and then we assign a grade to each of those votes. And I think you might have some in any one year. You might have someone go off or go. But over the course of time, you can tell, who's got this, who are strong liberty defenders, and Rand Paul and Thomas Massie over the many years have just the best scores. I mean, Ron Paul, I think is sort of I don't think he ever got less than 100 on an index, but Thomas is right there with him, and Rand is the leader in the Senate, and it's really important because if you look at the rest of the U.S. Senate, they're kind of largely useless. They're just establishment guys who, are going to continue to grow the bureaucratic state in D.C.
Right.
And they're not friends of liberty.
So what I was getting at, I see that Liberty Index is one of your best tools for informing the public. You're exposing the Republicans that are not really living up to the old party tradition, and that's a great tool for getting Americans interested in politics again and starting to look at what
we do. And by the way, our chapters do it on the state level too. We do it in Florida. We do it in Texas. It's a really important tool.
Yeah, we had one in South Carolina for a while, And we definitely need another one as soon as possible. As soon as you get South Carolina reorganized, I'd even help them do a Liberty Index for the state of South Carolina. So really,
well, I would encourage your folks from South Carolina who are sitting on Myrtle Beach or Pawleys Beach, to take a break from the beach one day and go over and sign up to join the Republican Liberty Caucus at rlc.org, and follow us at Our Liberty Caucus on X, and get involved. Let's get that South Carolina chapter going again.
if somebody wants to donate to the Republican Liberty Caucus, how do they do that?
Go to rlc.org and click on donate and jump right in. Become a member, make a donation. Yeah.
Very good. Well, Mr. Dennis, thanks for being on the show today. And it looks like someone can use the words Republican and Liberty in the same sentence. We are fortunate that the Republican Liberty Caucus acts as the conscience of the Republican Party, constantly reminding them of the need to return America to a land that embraces limited government, individual and economic freedom. While I'm obviously a radical libertarian, I wish the best of luck for the RLC in the future in reforming the Republican Party. Its organizations such as the Libertarian Party, as dysfunctional as it is, the Republican Liberty Caucus, the Legislative Freedom Caucus, Young Americans for Liberty, Americans for Prosperity, and even the John Birch Society, who work tirelessly to reverse America's current slide to serfdom. And all of these organizations share my mantra, less government, more freedom. Thanks for listening, and now a word from our glorious leader, the executive producer of Liberty Crack Media, Trip Detmering.
Yes. Hey, everybody, this has been another fantastic episode of Conversations with the Hoff. If you enjoy Conversations with the Hoff that drops every Thursday, go to libertycrackmedia.com and find out more about some of our amazing podcasts and some of our amazing sponsors that have been jumping on board lately. I want to thank John Dennis for joining us. And if you want to learn more about the RLC, go to rlc.org. You will see all the links in our notations. And until next time, this has been Conversations with the Hoff.
Pull up a chair, lean in close. Got a question in a black coffee globe. From campus quads to the Capitol steps, we're talking who we are, what comes next. Conversations with the Hoff, where the big ideas kick the shoes off. Liberty, tradition, side by side, argue, laugh, then let it ride. Conversations with the Hoff, turn it up and turn it over in your mind. Tax to the hill or left alone, how much power do we loan? Rights on paper, rights in hand. Where do we draw that line in the sand? Conversations with a Hoff, where the big ideas kick their shoes off. Liberty, tradition, side by side, argue, laugh, and let it ride. Conversations with the Hoff, turn it up and turn it over in your mind. Is it either or in between? Old school roots and a freedom dream. Pull that thread, see what you find. One more question, we're out of time. Conversations with the Hoff, where the big ideas kick the shoes off. Liberty, tradition, side by side, argue, laugh, then let it ride. Conversations with the Hoff, hit subscribe and take a little time to think it through.